Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Joining me today is Jennifer Hungate, president of our local NAWIC chapter, which is the National Association of Women in Construction, and vice president of Robert F. Hyland and Sons, which is a full-service general contracting firm based out of Rochester, New York, and verified by the Center for Veteran Enterprise as a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. Whew, that's a lot of letters for an acronym. Jen has been in the industry for 15 plus years. Thank you for joining us today. Now tell me how you find yourself in the construction industry and filling these challenging roles.
Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm super honored. Construction. I've been in the industry for, professionally, 15 plus years, but a lot of people don't know that I grew up in the industry, raised by parents who are very blue collar. My father worked at Kodak his whole life, and side work, he did drywall. So starting out around 7 or 8, I would go to job sites with him. I would help sweep, pick up nails, and kind of just dove right in. And my mother is also in the industry. She, when I was about 13, flew out to Colorado for a golf trip, fell in love with it, and decided that was going to be for her forever home. And so she started a painting company that's grew exponentially. And I remember going out there through high school and junior high every summer, and I would help out on job sites and I would paint. I feel as though she gave me the worst jobs, but it definitely taught me a lot that, hard work definitely does pay off. But it also gave me the drive to want to go to school and pursue what my passion was construction. I loved being on the job sites growing up and watching these houses being built from the ground up. And it was just really exciting. So I knew that that's where I wanted to be, but I didn't quite know how to get there. So through high school, guidance counselors would always push me to take courses that I didn't necessarily feel that I wanted. I wanted to take those shop classes. I knew that I wanted to be in engineering. So there was a course that I asked my parents to pay for. It was Principles of Engineering, and it was a senior course where we got college credits. And from there, I learned how to frame a wall, hang drywall, run electrical, and I was in heaven. But a lot of my friends in school, they were taking home ec and music and art, and me personally, it wasn't my thing. I value it. I think it's great that people do it. Just wasn't for me. So from there on, of course, my parents weren't thrilled that I said I wanted to pursue a career in construction. I think they always envisioned their little girl to be a nurse or a teacher or whatever parents decide they want their child to be when they're little. But no, their little girl wanted to wear construction boots and a hard hat. So I ended up going to MCC for 1 year just to obviously make sure that this was what I wanted to do. Took a very generic, undecided engineering course, and I knew this is what I wanted to do. As I said, I was only at MCC for 1 year, and then I transferred over to RIT, where I enrolled in, at the time, the program was, it was engineering science, civil engineering technology, and it was eye-opening. I was amazed at the courses that I was going to take. My advisor at the school was a woman, and to me that was amazing. Maureen was her history. Her husband was in the military, and she traveled all over with him, but she still pursued her career. Every city she went to, she was estimating, took any engineering job she could because that was her passion. And I think she was the first woman that I met that I realized I could still be a mother and have my career. And it was great. Took a lot of extracurricular activities over at RIT. I joined the concrete canoe team. Yes, concrete can float.
I'm laughing. I'm like, if I saw that as like a extracurricular campus enrichment, I would probably jump on that too. It's a very compelling name.
It was so much fun. Like, we got to be in the soils lab, we called it, and we got dirty, and we made samples just to see the buoyancy of the different concretes that we came up with. And you actually put these on. We were, it was so cold, but I remember we were practicing on the Genesee River over by, somewhere by the campus. There was a boat launch, and a lot of the crew teams practiced there. And here we are in this concrete canoe, and we passed the crew teams, and it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of friends, and it was just a great experience.
I do think that RIT does a great job with their kind of immersive and like tangible experiences they give the students.
Yes, and honestly, what I loved about being on campus is part of the requirement is you have to do internships, and they have to be paid internships. So I feel like RIT definitely prepares the students to enter the workforce. They're not there just to kind of take your money, hand you a piece of paper and say, okay, good luck. Like, they actually train their students, and they make sure that they are getting qualified internships that are actually going to make them employable. So while I was there, I took on 5 different internships. And one of the best pieces of advice I got from one of my professors was try to take a position at a different company each time and make sure it's a different kind of company, so you can see the variety of what you can do with your degree. So my very first internship, I knew I wanted to be out in the field. So I took a survey for a site survey company. And that was fun for about a week. And then I realized that you survey in all types of weather, doesn't matter if it's raining or snowing, and you're generally in areas that aren't the nicest because you're trying to prepare for a construction site. You're not on a prepared site already. So we were in the woods a lot, and it was cold and muddy and wet. So I realized right off the bat, okay, I don't want to be a surveyor. What's next? My next position, I believe I took, was an estimator for a site contractor. And that was great. It was funny. I walked into my interview and I was dressed in a suit and heels, and I thought I looked great. Well, a site contractor, he's wearing overalls and boots, so I was very overdressed. A lot of the guys in the office got a chuckle out of it, but I thought, I was trying to be professional. So I learned a lot as far as what really civil engineering was in construction.
Well, the culture around it as well, it seems.
It's so different. They're very just laid back people, and I love it. Like, no one is trying hard, but they're just hardworking people, and they take pride in what they do.
Yeah. And a little background. So Jen and I know each other because I'm also based in Rochester, New York. And we met at a NAWIC event, and I found that the members of NAWIC are incredible. And so Rochester, RIT is Rochester Institute of Technology, and MCC is our community college here. And I have experienced both programs. I kind of like dipped my toe into the RIT program, but then I nearly finished the interior design program at MCC, but then pivoted into construction technology because I was done with paint samples at one point. Well, I had gotten to the point where I was being taught Revit in my interior design program and then when I was in the CIT program, they were teaching AutoCAD. So I felt like there was a disparity there. And I knew that if I wanted to get into the industry in the space that I wanted to occupy, I needed to know how to use Revit, but I needed to know how to use it with a builder's mentality. And that's why I thought RIT was fantastic, is because they're getting their students like immersed into actual construction experience. So, right, Jen and I met at a NAWIC event, and you weren't the president at the time.
No, I wasn't.
And you are now. So what is your role there and how did you get involved?
So I got involved with NAWIC while I was interning for the town of DPW. And I was site surveying again. And the town supervisor or inspector, he had taken me around to look at a couple different job sites. And he said, you know what, I want you to meet somebody. And I said, okay. And he's like, there's this woman named Pat Hines. And I was like, who's Pat Hines? And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. So we pull up into this building out in Fairport and it's Hines Concrete. And I'm like, oh, well, it's clearly, it's her husband. And I feel horrible that was exactly where my thought went, but I did. So I walk in and I'm with him and we go to this massive office. And here is this maybe 5-foot older woman. She had to be like 65 years old. And she introduces herself to me as Pat Hines. And I'm like, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Jen Hungate, I'm sorry, Jennifer Hill at the time. Wow, this was when I was married. And so she explains to me, her and her husband, well, mainly her, they started this concrete company. And they were one of the first companies in Rochester that had a slip form machine for sidewalks. And so that really got their company, that really took them right through the industry and just set them apart from all the other concrete companies. And to me, it was fascinating that here's this woman who has been in this industry her whole life. She has, her and her husband work together. Her sons work there. And she was telling me about NAWIC. And she goes, have you heard of NAWIC? And I hadn't, of course. And she said that there's this network of women in Rochester who are all in construction. And she goes, I would love to sponsor you and come to one of our meetings. So I said, okay. I was free one night and I went and I was welcomed by all these women that I didn't even know were in the industry. All these women, different companies, mechanical, electrical, site, architects, engineers, they were all there. And it was just amazing and almost inspiring. It was really inspiring to be in a room full of all these women who essentially are going to have the same issues that you do with your jobs. So it was nice to see that. And Pat was very kind. As I was a student, she offered to pay for my student membership, which I will be forever in debt to her. Unfortunately, this past year, Pat did pass away. So we actually now have our scholarship is named after her. So it's the Pat Scholarship. So it's amazing. And her granddaughter was one of the recipients this year.
That's awesome.
So she's going to follow into her grandmother's footsteps. So we're really excited to see how where she goes in her career.
Well, I think that having mentors is such a key piece of finding your way through a professional environment and really getting your feet under you. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about your role at NAWIC and some of the things you would like to see happen with the organization?
Yeah, so as chapter president, it is actually my job to make sure that we are enforcing our mission statement, which is basically to promote and educate women in construction, to go out there and teach these young girls that there are possibilities of not so much a typical job for them, that there is a career outside of this industry or standard norms for them, and that we are desperate for them to enter these careers. Right now, women make up just under 10% of women in the construction industry. What I am pleased to hear is that I did recently learn that women are paid. There's less of a gender gap pay with women in construction than there are in other industries. So with construction, there was a survey done, and women are paid 99% of what their male coworkers are paid, which I found pretty interesting because in other industries, women are paid roughly 80 to 82%. So at least that the gender pay gap is a lot less.
So there's less of us, but
there is less
paid comparably.
Correct. So at least we're appreciated, those who do enter the field. So that was really exciting. But my goal for this year with NAWIC is I would hope to bring on at least 5 to 10 more members. Rochester is a big city. Currently, we have 46 members. I would love to see that somewhere between 55 to 60, if not more. There's a lot of companies and colleges locally that offer, RAT being specifically, we're so close that they have a program there. And I've recently reached out to them, and we will possibly be having some networking events involving the students. So hopefully we can at least let the college women know that, hey, there is a network out here when you graduate or even when you are in school. We're here. Reach out to us if you have questions about your career or concerns. Please, we're here. Your sisters. Reach out.
Since the listeners of this podcast are not Rochester based, I think we could say that their NAWIC is national.
It is national.
There is an opportunity for NAWIC chapters across the nation to engage with like the a younger audience, like really get their student membership up. So I love that Rochester is doing that, and that like you as the president is like, that's one of the focuses, because construction can be intimidating for anyone, and to have someone that can just sort of guide you and give you like, some direction as to good moves to make, networking you. I think that is the key to any successful professional development. So I love that NAWIC has that focus. And I think there is a way for our chapter. We do engage with companies, local construction companies. And is that something that you guys are going to continue to do?
Absolutely. We are very fortunate that a lot of the local companies, they are sponsoring their female employees. They are encouraging them to join NAWIC, to attend our monthly meetings. And some of them are even our professional industry speakers. And they're coming in and telling us about projects that are out there that are available to possibly bid on, or upcoming projects. We're learning about new technology. Actually, you yourself came to one of our meetings and explained and entered the world of BIM and Revit. Am I correct? Did I say
yep.
that right? So that was really nice, and a lot of girls didn't realize that was an opportunity, and that was something that they could use in their project. I think a lot of people learned, even myself learned, when you came and scanned my home. I learned that I have very expensive taste.
Yeah, so that little backstory is that Jennifer and I, Jen knew that she wanted to do some modifications to the exterior of her home. And so my team and I went over, we did a laser scan, we got a digital model in place, and then we did a full Hardy package with some really fun siding profiles and colors.
I love it.
It was so much fun to work on, and it was really great to see your reaction. And I was really proud of us because we got through that scan pretty quickly, and we got a lot of detail into the plans.
And you got it turned around really quickly. Like, you made the whole process seamless and easy, and it was fun. You having me create almost my inspiration boards was a lot of fun. So I was super excited.
Well, and that's what I love about kind of the NAWIC chapter, is that when you walk into some groups, like, you don't know, like you don't know people, you're trying to get to know, for me, it was getting to know a new industry. So getting to know everyone in the organization was fantastic. And then having a platform to kind of test my presenting skills and providing the opportunity for my NAWIC group to learn about what building information modeling is, what a digital twin can be, like just kind of those long-term digital implementation strategy. Like, it was just a really great environment to kind of test that skill, and it was a very friendly environment. So it's been fantastic. Are you facing, as we try and develop the NAWIC membership, or are you finding that you're encountering any like key challenges, any things that you'd really like to focus on improving?
Well, I've been president for 28 days. So we just recently had our our board meeting. And so we kind of created a timeline or a plan of what we were hoping to see, how we wanted to see the year. So we all made a calendar, and we have meetings planned through December. Unfortunately, with a COVID year, it's kind of hard to foresee what the future is going to look like. You know, are we going to be able to have in-person meetings? Are we not? You know, are people comfortable? So we did do a survey monkey, and what the survey results did show us is that people want in-person meetings. So now we are trying to brainstorm how can we have monthly meetings that are both in-person and virtual, but also be safe. So we are going to try a networking event in January at the Rochester Builders Exchange. And there we will test it out. I'm not sure how we're going to do speed networking with some people virtual and not virtual, but I think we can create some breakout rooms for people who are virtual, and they can kind of do their own speed networking that way.
I can't say that connecting people still is so important. And
it is. And that's how we do our business.
It's hard. Yeah.
Especially, so I'm not in sales, but a lot of our members, they are in sales. So that is how they make their earning. That's how they make their living.
Yeah.
So right now I know it's hard for them to not be able to be in person. So I think a lot of people are very anxious to get back in person and start really networking. So we're hoping NAWIC can help that.
It is. It's an important platform that you guys provide, and everyone comes to the table knowing that that's the vibe, is making sure that we can facilitate those within the organization that need to make those connections. So you've had 15 plus years in the industry, and I do a little segment called 30 No's. So I was wondering if you could come up with, what's the best no that you've heard, and was it right? Was it wrong? And what did you do to redirect that no? And how did it shape who you are today? That was a lot of questions. Did you get all that?
It was a lot. No, I did. So I don't know if it was necessarily a no, but it was more or less an opportunity that wasn't given to me per se. So I was about 28, just married, and 2 young babies. And there was a position for a project manager that was just outside of our hometown. It was in Binghamton, New York. So it was about 2.5 hours away. And I was a perfect candidate for this position, but I was not offered said position because I was told that they thought because I had young children that I wouldn't want it. And I was never asked, so they gave it to someone who I felt was less qualified. So to me, that was almost like the biggest no I had. And I took it as my employer said no for me, that they thought that I either couldn't do it or that, I was better suited at home. Either way, it really upset me. And it really taught me that I felt like my employer didn't value who I was and what my career goals were. That might have been their thought, but that wasn't how I felt. I wanted the position. My husband was supportive of that. We had 2 young children, but he knew where my goal was for my future. So that definitely, it upset me, and what led me to eventually leave the company. It kind of just another nail in the coffin of, okay, this is why I need to leave.
It really is interesting to hear that you actually had that experience, that they had made an assumption about your perspectives and your values, and that had that impacts your livelihood. So did you take that and move? I would take that information and be like, I'm going to make it very clear moving forward that if I am applying for a position, I want the position. Didn't think I'd have to do that.
Absolutely. So yes, after I left there, I had 2 other positions, and I made it very clear with those 2 positions of where I stood, what I expected from them. And I wanted to also know what they expected from me. Was I going to be what they were looking for? Because, obviously I'm working for them, but also I wanted to make sure that I was getting what I wanted out of it. And, you know, to me, you have to be happy with what you're doing for your career. You spend more of your time awake at your job. And if you're not happy doing it, you're going to be miserable. So I consider my work my second family. It's almost like my second husband. And I love it.
Well, and that's what's interesting about what you had said is that, so you were 28 when you had that experience.
Yes.
And knowing then what you know now, it is interesting to a lot of young people perhaps might feel uncomfortable being very definitive in disclosing what it is they're looking for out of a position, but also like from the leader of the organization that, you know, they're putting an application into. So would you give that advice to young professionals in regards to being direct and setting your expectations, like
Absolutely.
putting them out there way early?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's better off that you're very honest with your employer of who you are than for them to get used to who you are and then for you to change. So they're like, well, where's this coming from? My current position where I'm at now with Hyland, I remember when I did apply, I didn't even really apply, but when I got offered the position, I remember going in for an interview and I sat down with the owner and we're talking and he asked, you know, do you have any questions for me? And I said, well, kind of. And I said, don't hire me if you aren't okay with me leaving. And he was very like surprised. And he goes, well, what do you mean? And I said, my goal eventually is to be my own boss. I would love to own my own company. And if you're not okay with that, I don't want you to be surprised when I tell you this is my plan. And he was very quiet at first. And he just smiled and he goes, I love that you know what you want and that you can say it out loud. And he goes, of course I want you on my team. He goes, you're honest because you had enough guts to be honest with me and tell me. He goes, those are the kind of people I want employed with me who are going to be open and honest with me. They're not going to tell me what I want to hear. And he goes, you don't even know me and you told me like this is what your plan is. So and I knew that was a good fit.
Well, it's great to hear that was the response. I feel like as an owner of a company, if you know you get an opportunity to work with an individual that has a very clear mind, it forces you as the owner to really level up. And you know, what type of environment can I create that that will retain that type of talent and that type of person? You're still there right now, so you must be doing an okay job.
I tried to quit, and not because I disliked my company, the company itself. I just had that goal of I wanted to go pursue my own company and kind of be my own boss. So he went up to me and offered me a position as a partner, and I accepted. Well, at first I was hesitant. I had to think about it because he completely threw my career plan off track. Like I was not prepared for that. So I said, I need a day to think about it, which obviously I came home and talked to my husband about it and we discussed everything and realized, you know, it was probably the best idea just to buy into the company and become partner. But he did throw me for a loop. I was not expecting that.
Oh man.
So I'm very excited that I
set the bar high for him. He's like, I'm not losing you. You crazy?
Apparently.
I mean, that's a good owner. And what's interesting is that, like, you know, one of the questions I ask those that I'm interviewing is like, you know, who do you consider like your board of advisors or mentors? Would you say that that's, you know, a position that you have with your current company? Is it the Robert F., I assume?
Yes, Robert F. Hyland. And it's funny, his name is not Robert, his name is Donald.
Is a mentor to you? Like, do you have others that you lean on?
Yes. So I have, I think it's important to have multiple mentors and different types of mentors. You don't always want the same mentor in your industry because you need an outside perspective. Donald is a retired state trooper. So even though he is in construction, he was in the military. So I definitely value his opinion and I go to him for all kinds of things. His biggest advice to me is I'll never forget it. He told me cash is king. You always want cash to make any business decision. So he's saved me a tremendous amount of money. And he told me to slow down and enjoy life, that life goes by fast. He has 3 sons, and he can't believe that they're all older, out of the house. They have their own lives. And, I'll come into work and I'm tired sometimes because I have 2 boys under the age of 11 and they keep me busy. And he tells me all the time how jealous he is that I get to live that right now. And I'm looking at him like, I'm exhausted. And then I have Michelle, who I met at the career fair when I was back in college, who hired me as an intern, who eventually turned into a full-time position. She, to this day, is one of my greatest mentors, and I talk to her about everything. And it's funny because I feel like I've turned into her mentor. So it's interesting.
I've experienced when you get a very mutualistic environment with, someone that you have as a peer advisor. Like, I think that's the golden ticket when it can be mutually beneficial. Especially when you're that young and you've matured into a role in the construction industry and you've maintained your relationship with a mentor. And so you'll still turn to her.
I still do. Those 2 are probably the top 2 that I call for anything significant, really, career-wise. But of course, I have my friends that I bounce ideas. I've called you and bounced ideas off you before as well, and vice versa. But I think it's good to get a couple different perspectives from people.
What's some good advice that Michelle's given you?
Oh my goodness. Oh, I remember I came to her and she told me, you have to be happy with where you're working. And if you're miserable each day, like if you're not excited to go to work every day, then that's not where you need to be. And she kind of more or less, she kind of helped me feel more confident to leave my job that I was unhappy with. And she supported me the whole way. Even though she worked for that company, she knew I wasn't happy. And she was 100% supportive, did not judge. And it was nice to have her behind me.
I think that's great. And I love that you've filled that role for me on a number of occasions. So I remember the first time I had gone to a NAWIC event, it was with a mutual friend of ours. And she says to me, oh, you have to meet Jen at this NAWIC event. And I'm like, okay, it's a bunch of ladies in construction. I'm so excited. And I left that evening just like, oh, I found my people. Oh, I found my people. And you
showed up at one of the best events, by the way. That was the guest bartending.
It's pretty awesome. And when I left that evening and I was like, I get to have like casual conversation. It's about construction with other people that want to hear about construction and have things to talk about construction. Because to date, I had not experienced being able to have that kind of like peer interaction that didn't get totally sick of like construction chit chat.
No, I don't think any of us ladies will ever get sick of talking about it. And we don't always talk about work, but it's nice to have another woman who's in the industry who experiences these things. We're moms, and I feel like women put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and we do it to ourselves. We want to be the perfect wife. We want to be the perfect mom and the perfect friend and the perfect employee. And, we want to have a very pretty house, and we just juggle so much, and we are our biggest critics. And sometimes we just have to be like, enough. Like, we are enough. If you want to give your kids cereal for dinner, give them cereal.
I did have that experience. My son had hot dog for dinner when he was like 2, and I was like, or not for dinner. It was breakfast. Oh my gosh, I gave him a hot dog for breakfast. And I had to go through like this mental like reconciliation. I'm like, it's a sausage. So it's okay.
But do you think your husband or my husband, that thought goes through their head? They're like, hey, I fed our kid.
It's protein.
It's protein. He's going to be huge.
Well, it's interesting. So I have a couple different mentors that are in the construction space. One was my CIT professor. And it going into a civil technology program and not having a lot of commercial construction background, which is what the primary theme of the program is, it's commercial sector. And I had said to her, I'm like, so part of me just, I need to get out there and I need to get some experience. And, that's hard. She's like, you will go into this construction industry and the bar will be set higher for you. You'll feel like it's not okay to fail. And she's like, the culture of construction industry is very different. It's sort of like, yeah, you get into the field, you fake it till you make it. And you're going to have to kind of adjust to that, because I would say that a majority of women are not comfortable in a fake it till you make it environment.
I remember one of my first experiences. So you're right. It is a different culture, and there are rooms called war rooms, and that's their estimating room. And I was like, excuse me? And it's literally called the war room. And I was one of the only female estimators. And the language that came out of there, HR would blush. But it's just almost like this unsaid rule of what happens in the war room stays in the war room. And, there's a high stress, papers are flying everywhere. You're trying to get this $30 million bid done with. And I remember one of my first experiences, and I blame myself. I was afraid to ask. I was nervous. I wanted to prove myself that I knew what I was doing. So I was in charge of the door package, and it was for the school, and there had to have been like 380 doors. And so I gave the head estimator my number for labor, and he goes, that sounds off. And I go, well, what do you mean? And he asked me, he goes, well, how many continuous hinges do you have? And I was like, well, 500 and some odd doors. And he goes, are you kidding me? Well, I didn't realize the difference between a continuous hinge and a regular hinge. And a continuous hinge is almost like a piano hinge where the door will close on itself. Well, those take at least 10 to 20 screws per door, whereas a regular hinge has 3 screws per hinge. So we're scrounging around and he's yelling at me, and I'm like almost in tears going, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, because you're in a room full of all your coworkers and you don't want to be you're already the woman. Then you're the woman who made the mistake. And the last thing I want to be is the woman who made the mistake and cried in the war.
Like league of their own. There's no
crying in construction. So that always stuck with me as one of the scariest times. But after that, I learned what a continuous hinge was, and I never made that mistake again.
I think that yes, I do pride myself on I will make mistakes, but I generally only make them once. That's the goal. And if I can go into because the other mentor that I have is a commercial construction manager, and he runs multi-million-dollar. He has to audit the bids. He's got to audit the proposals. He's like, and he's the one that said, just do it. Take the jump. Get into it. You're going to make mistakes, build some contingency around yourself. But the important thing is that you won't actually have an opportunity to learn unless you just throw yourself in there. So I had these like almost polar opposite advisors. And it was interesting to try and create a pathway that honored both of their advice, because their advice was good. But I felt like there's a little dichotomy there. And I totally appreciated, the perspective that they provided me. And I would say that if anybody's out there listening and they're considering getting into construction, or they're like a little fearful, is just, you got to throw yourself in.
You have to. Yeah. And you're going to make so many mistakes. And as I got older, I realized that the men were making more mistakes than actually I was, because I was so nervous to make a mistake that I was triple checking everything, where they would do it once and hand it in. Not all men, but I just realized that, like you said, you fake it till you make it. And they were doing that like nobody's business. And I was oblivious to it all.
Well, and then you get the chops, to get through those situations a little bit faster each time. So you have so much experience in the construction industry, and there are many people that listen that do not have a construction background. But my take on the world is that everything is influenced by design or construction. So if someone's listening and if they had a construction project that they were getting into, do you have any advice you would provide them?
So I have it from two different perspectives, just because I've been on both sides. I'd say from an owner's perspective, definitely have your needs separated from your wants. I think those kind of tend to get meshed together sometimes, and we get very excited. I recently was that person when you and I were redoing my scan of my home, and I was like, oh, I want this, and I want this, and I want this. Well, yeah, we all want that, but at the end of the day, there's going to be a cost associated with that. So I think a lot of owners need to realize, one, what's your maximum budget? You know, how much are you willing to spend? Really decide what your needs are versus where your wants are, and the designer can do value engineering with you. There's always other options. You know, from a contractor side, it's very important to have a full understanding of your scope of work and what the owner or your client wants. So I'd say definitely have a full understanding of the read your specs, read your drawings, all the notes on there. Because I find that designers or engineers sometimes like to put in little notes and you just bypass them and you miss them. And also pick the team that you know will get the job done well. And I think this is hard for some people. They tend to think just because you have seniority that you're going to be given a job, even though you're not the most qualified. Just recently, we had a project at one of the city schools, and we had the door package. So again, 300 and some odd doors we're installing, and I had 2 candidates to put on there to lead the project. And I actually ended up giving it to the one individual who has been with our company for 3 years versus the individual who's been with the company longer than I have. And I know that he was very upset about it, but I had to make that decision because the newer individual was the best fit for it. He had the more experience when it came to commercial doors. And the job has gone smoothly, and I no regrets. And I had to have that conversation with the senior employee, and he understood it. But you know, I at least took the time to sit down and talk to him and explain to him my decision. I didn't have to do that, but it definitely made our work environment a lot more pleasant. And he didn't have to worry that he was going to lose his job because I brought in, you know, someone else.
That's great. I mean, that's great advice. Do you that feeds pretty well into like what you think the top 3 misconceptions of the construction industry are, and how do you suggest we overcome those?
I'd say that people tend to think that construction workers are almost like low skill level, which is odd because they have plenty of skills. And that construction people do not make money. They make a lot of money. We do a lot of prevailing wage work, so our guys make anywhere from $45 an hour to $65 an hour. And that tends to be way more than a lot of people that I know who make. So they make a lot of money. And I think the other misconception is that it is a man's world. And I think NAWIC and us women are kind of proving that, you know, it's not a man's world, and we're coming. We're going to increase those numbers. We're at 10%, and who knows, maybe in a couple of years it'll be at 20.
And we know they value us. They're paying us
They definitely do value us.
I think that's the misconceptions on the construction industry. I totally agree with your take on that. The level of skill and mastery that is required to get this work done is really, it's difficult to learn because a lot of it seems to be like an apprentice type environment. Do you find that the construction industry needs to like move towards a more collaborative and transparent environment in order for it to kind of disprove some of these misconceptions?
Yeah, I mean, we're already kind of collaborative. I'd say it has to be more. I'd say there should be more transparency between the designer and the end user. I always find that to be the most challenging. we'll do a hospital project and the designer, the engineer will be hired, but he's never even talked to the doctor who's going to have that office. I'm like, did you guys even talk? And then there's massive change orders because the doctor or the end user isn't happy with their office space or their operating.
I love that you're saying this. This is my being. Like, the reason I am a BIMmer is because for I would say the first time in history, we can still have the end user's voice heard in the design phase in like a virtual reality experience, which means construction happens with less change orders because we've already verified. Like, I've heard this when I've gone to some of the commercial conferences, is like, the operating theater. If you're building hospitals and you need staff in a room and a doctor that needs to like have measured steps between, this part of the procedure to the other part of the procedure, I think it's so exciting to kind of really put, to create that cohesion in the
Absolutely
design phase.
And your construction costs are going to be so much lower when you involve all the end users in the design planning phase before you even hit construction. You will save so much more money, headaches, and you might be able to even eliminate some things that you thought you needed, and they might not want those. So I love it.
I love that you said that. I totally agree. That seems to be like a major theme. So what advice would you give for those looking to get into the construction field?
So do it. I think we both agreed. Just go in and just do it. And as far as if you feel like you need training, I guess it all depends on what you're looking to do. Can you get into construction without a college degree? Absolutely. You definitely can. You can get in with a high school diploma. It's just a matter of which path you're going to get into. Are you going to be in the field and get field experience? Because I tend to think that tends to be the best way. I see a lot of people who go to school and they just read textbooks and then they go and work in an office and they don't get that field experience. So it's really hard to look at a set of plans and visualize what you're building or estimating until you actually get out there and get your hands dirty. And I'm so blessed that I was able to get out in the field with my internships and really get some real life experiences to see, the trenches that they're building for these, sewer systems. And, I got to see them install roads and sidewalks, and just looking at plans, you don't quite grasp what is involved between all the machinery and the people you have there. But I guess it matter if you want to be a project manager. I think at the very least, maybe an associate's degree in some sort of construction management, because they do teach you really great courses. You'll learn scheduling, basic cost estimating. I think you took a couple AutoCAD classes as well that you mentioned. I was terrible at AutoCAD. I will be honest. Like, I just did enough to get through it and I was done. I knew that I would leave it to the professionals like you, because I was like, nope, don't want it.
I love that. So circling back to the role you're playing at NAWIC, they do have a scholarship program, and we do the fundraiser we were talking about where you and I met was raising money for that. And I thought was interesting is that we have this scholarship, but sometimes we don't have applicants.
It's crazy. We are trying to give away money. Take our money.
Take our money.
So throughout the whole year, NAWIC, we tried to raise money for our scholarships. And we try to award 3 separate scholarships. One for a high school female entering construction or engineering. One for a student who is currently already enrolled in a campus who is studying construction or engineering. And then we also do another scholarship for women who are in the trades, who are actually in the field. And this can go towards, their textbooks or training, because they do have to get some industry training that they go to a vocational school and they'll learn some basic skills, how to use measuring tapes and all that. So that just kind of goes towards their classes and their materials that they use. But yeah, no, in the past, NAWIC has struggled, or at least our chapter has struggled to even get 2 applicants. And just recently, we had several applicants to where we had to narrow it down to 3. So it was exciting to see that we're growing. People are starting to learn who NAWIC is locally. I know there are other chapters who are larger. I think Orlando is one of our largest chapters in the United States. And where are your listeners based out of again? You said Colorado?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are chapters in Colorado. One's in Denver, and I think the other one is in Pikes Peak area. But I suggest anyone who's listening, and if you're interested in construction, definitely reach out. Go to the NAWIC website, and you can look up chapters. Type in your zip code and see which closest chapter is near you, and just go to a meeting. You don't have to become a member. You can at least go and meet these women and encourage the young women that you know that, hey, there's a possibility to have a career in construction, and there are scholarships out there to help you reach those. So I'm pretty excited, and I'm really, really happy that I can actually help facilitate, women entering the construction field and raising money and awareness.
Well, I'm very excited about your role, even though you're only 27 days into it. I think that there's some big opportunity there. So you've already said if people are interested in looking and engaging in NAWIC, it's sort of just like look up your local chapter. And then my take on it is, if you're a business owner and you're looking to support those getting into the industry, like this is a great way to build those networks. And there's a lot of corporate involvement here in our chapter. And I would encourage any company that's out there saying like, where's a good outreach or an affiliation? I think that NAWIC's a really good one.
Well, the value for companies, to me, I find amazing is, it costs a company, I think it depends on the chapter, but I want to say it's around $240 average, $240 to $270 for you to be a member of NAWIC. But in return, companies get roughly $5,000 potential value. And with that, you get technical training. We have guest speakers who come in and train us on certain topics that, what do people want to learn? And we do, like I said, we do Survey Monkeys, but we do legal updates. We've had attorneys come in and teach some of us how to read contracts. Like that in itself, I don't know if you ever paid for an attorney. I know I have, and they are a fortune. I paid an attorney $250 an hour, and I could not wait to get done with him. So just learning how to read your contracts and just networking, just meeting those potential clients can be beneficial for another company. So there's a lot of value into NAWIC, and it's not just, hey, we're going to get together and we're just going to talk amongst women. Like we're actually out there networking. We're drumming up business for our companies. So I think it's beneficial, and it's a huge value for a company to invest in for their women.
It's been a great experience on my end, and I'm really glad that you came on. Thank you again for the time. And for all that you're doing. I just think it's so exciting.
Thank you so much for having me. And, this was a great opportunity. And again, I'm hoping that more women enter construction and really consider joining their local NAWIC chapters. And if anyone has questions, I don't know if you're going to post my email or anything, but
I was going to ask, so are you comfortable with people reaching out through LinkedIn?
Absolutely. I'm actually excited to see who's going to reach out and from where. Hoping some local Colorado people, because I travel there a lot, so that would be exciting.
Go Colorado.
Woohoo.
All right. Well, I thank you again for the time, and thanks everyone for listening.